They didn't call, they didn't ask, they just sent a group message. "We think it's best you take some time off from the family. Josh needs space. We all do." And just like that, I was out. But what they didn't realize was that the moment they pushed me away, they also pulled the plug on the only thing holding them together. The rent, the medicine, the mortgage, the car insurance, all of it gone because I stopped paying, because I stepped away, just like they told me to. By morning, there were 76 missed calls, one shaky voicemail, and a family unraveling faster than they could say my name. But that was only the beginning. It was just another quiet Friday night. I was heating up some leftover pasta, looking out the window of my ninth-floor apartment in downtown Chicago, thinking about whether I had enough energy to finish that report before bed. My phone buzzed. Nothing unusual. It was from the family core group chat. My mom, my dad, my younger brother Josh, Aunt Lucille, the regular circle. I opened it. "We think it's best you take some time off from us. Josh needs peace. We all do." No context, no warning, just that. And beneath it, a thumbs-up emoji from Aunt Lucille. As if this was some casual update. As if I hadn't been the one holding everything together behind the scenes for years. I stared at the message for a while. I don't remember how long. Then I typed, "Understood, I'll step away, and so will the Morgan Reserve Fund." I didn't wait for a reply. I walked away from the stove, the pasta still warm and forgotten. I grabbed my laptop, logged into the account, the one I'd been silently maintaining for 6 years, the one that no one ever talked about but everyone relied on. The Morgan Reserve Fund. It had paid for Dad's Parkinson's medication when insurance lapsed, for Josh's therapy sessions when he was too anxious to leave the house, for Mom's car repairs when she hydroplaned into a streetlight, for groceries, utilities, co-pays. Whatever crisis popped up, the fund was there. And that fund was me. No one else contributed, no one asked how I was doing, they just assumed it would be covered, because I always did. That night, I stopped the auto transfers. Then I closed the account completely. At 3:24 a.m., the first call came in. I didn't answer. By sunrise, I had 76 missed calls. Some from my dad, some from Josh, a few from Mom, even one from Aunt Lucille. The last voicemail was Dad's. "Rachel, what happened? The bank called. Something's wrong. Are you okay? Why would you—" I texted back one sentence. "I'm honoring your decision. They told me to step away. So I did. And in doing so, I pulled out the one thread that had been holding their lives together. But if you really want to understand why that message felt like betrayal, why it didn't just sting but cracked something open inside me, you'd have to go back. Back 6 years. To a night when my phone rang just after midnight. Dad was in the hospital parking lot crying. Josh had collapsed. They wouldn't admit him without a $3,000 payment up front. Insurance had lapsed. They were tapped out. And I, 27, single, working 80-hour weeks in finance, was the only one left to call. That night, I drained my savings. And it didn't stop there. From that point on, I became the silent safety net, the unspoken solution, the responsible one. I kept giving, and they kept taking. Not because they were malicious, but because they never once stopped to ask whether I could say no. Until now, I didn't set out to become the family's silent accountant. It just happened, one small emergency at a time. At first, it was Josh's hospital bill, the one that emptied my savings. Then came the therapy co-pays, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, when he was doing better. I set up autopay because Mom kept forgetting the login, and Josh said he couldn't handle financial stress on top of everything else. A few months later, Dad's insurance ran out. His Parkinson's meds cost over $800 a month. I covered it, quietly. Then their water heater broke. They were behind on the mortgage again. Mom's old Buick stopped starting. Josh's phone was disconnected, and somehow it was my fault that no one could reach him during a panic attack. Every time the call came late at night, or worse, through a family update text like it was just a minor footnote. "Hey Rach, any chance you could help just for this month? Just for this month," again and again. Eventually, I stopped waiting to be asked. I set up the Morgan Reserve Fund, a joint account, technically under my name, with automatic contributions from my paycheck. I linked their utility bills, their prescriptions, their insurance. I kept a spreadsheet: rent, gas, co-pays, groceries, repairs. It was the only way I could keep track of the bleeding. Not because I wanted control, but because chaos was their natural state, and I refused to let it drown me too. They gave me full access to everything: passwords, balances, credit card portals, not because they trusted me, but because they didn't want to deal with it. They called me the responsible one. What they really meant was the convenient one, the disposable safety net. No one ever said thank you. No one ever asked if I was okay. They assumed I made more than enough, because I worked in finance, right? They didn't know that I'd downgraded my apartment, that I stopped going out, that I skipped vacations, ate ramen and oatmeal for dinner more nights than I can count. They didn't know that I tracked every single dollar in a spreadsheet like it was the only thing keeping me sane. They didn't know because they never asked. And I never volunteered. Because deep down I thought maybe this is what good daughters do. Then came Christmas, 2 years ago. Josh wanted new tires. I had just paid his rent. Again. I told him gently that it wasn't possible. He stormed out of the room. The next day, Dad texted me. Try to be more understanding. He's in recovery. You don't know how hard that is. That was the moment something cracked. I didn't reply. Instead, I started documenting. Every transaction, every voice note, every screenshot. Not to hold it against them, not yet, but to remind myself that it was real, that I wasn't imagining the exhaustion, the pattern, the weight. I stopped seeing myself as the helper. I started seeing myself as the ledger keeper, the person holding the truth in numbers, in silence, while everyone else told a story about how I was cold, selfish, emotionally unavailable. But I had the receipts. I always had the receipts. And one day I knew I'd need them. It came on a Tuesday. Josh sent a message to the family group chat, short, casual, like always. Hey, I know money's been tight lately, but I was wondering if the fund could cover a wellness retreat in Big Sur. It's $2,900, all-inclusive, for my mental health. I read it 3 times. Then I scrolled down. Mom replied with a heart emoji. Dad chimed in minutes later. Sounds like something you really need. We'll figure it out. No one tagged me. No one asked if the fund still had money. No one checked in with the person actually running it. They just assumed, like always, that I would pay, that I should pay, that supporting Josh's healing journey was more important than my consent. I didn't answer the message, not because I was unsure, but because for the first time in a long time, I wanted to watch. I wanted to see if anyone in that thread would stop and say, let's check with Rachel first, or, she's done a lot already, maybe this is too much. But they didn't. They planned the retreat like it was already booked. Josh sent a follow-up an hour later, linking the Airbnb, the meditation itinerary, the menu. He even asked if I could send the money directly to his Venmo to avoid extra processing fees. I sat at my kitchen table, the same one I'd eaten countless meals of rice and eggs at, because I'd given so much of my income to them. I thought about the vacation I never took to Italy, the trip I postponed 3 times, the raise I barely celebrated. I thought about how no one in that chat had ever said, thanks for covering that. Not when I bailed out Dad's overdraft. Not when I got Mom a new set of tires. Not when I wired Josh emergency cash at 2 a.m. from an airport bathroom. And I realized this wasn't generosity anymore. This was extraction. They didn't think they were asking for a favor. They believed they were entitled. The Morgan Reserve Fund didn't feel like mine. It felt like theirs. Like it had always belonged to the family, just housed in my name for convenience. Somewhere along the way, I stopped being Rachel. I became the institution, the anonymous system they complained about when it lagged, but never thanked when it worked. I scrolled through the messages again. Retreat, mental health, healing. I believe in healing, I do. But I also know what manipulation wrapped in wellness language looks like. And this was it. It wasn't about healing. It was about escape, and someone else footing the bill. I didn't reply. I didn't transfer the money. I didn't even open Venmo. That night, I made a copy of the spreadsheet, backed it up twice, saved it under a new name. Proof. Because deep down I knew this wasn't going to be the last request. But it might be the first time I said no and didn't explain myself. And that felt like the beginning of something. Not revenge, just clarity. The Zoom invite came on a Sunday morning. Subject line, family check-in. It was the same title they'd used for every monthly video call, but this one felt different, too quiet, too formal. I clicked join, and there they were. Little rectangles in neat rows. Mom, stiff-lipped and silent. Dad pacing behind her. Josh with red eyes and dramatic lighting like he'd practiced. Aunt Lucille wrapped in a silk scarf like we were in family court. I should have left, but I didn't. Josh started. Why did you do this to us? His voice shook, just enough to sound fragile. You just abandoned us. I tilted my head. After everything I've done? I asked. You mean after I paid your rent for 14 months straight? Or the time I covered your ER visit and didn't tell Mom so you wouldn't be embarrassed? Or maybe when I declined to fund your yoga retreat and you decided that meant I didn't care? That's not fair, he mumbled. Fair? I repeated. You want fair? I reached beside me, clicked a tab, and shared my screen. A spreadsheet appeared. Rows and rows of transactions. Dates, vendors, notes, every copay, every overdraft rescue, every Uber ride to therapy, dental bills, vet bills, grocery lists. Even the Airbnb from the yoga retreat Josh almost booked, before I said no. No one spoke. Not even Aunt Lucille. I clicked to the final tab. A running total. 92 304 17. Dead silence. Dad sat down. Mom blinked like she'd seen a ghost. "You've been keeping tabs on us?" she asked, voice shaking. "No," I said, "I've been surviving you." Josh slammed his laptop shut. He was gone. Lucille leaned forward. "This is disgusting. You think money is everything?" "No," I said, "but it's the only thing you ever came to me for." I stopped sharing the screen, looked directly at the camera. "I've already contacted the bank," I said. "I've removed my name from everything. The credit cards, the shared utilities, the insurance auto-pays. The reserve fund is permanently closed. You'll need to re-enroll yourselves." Mom gasped. Dad turned pale. "You didn't have to go this far," he said quietly. "No," I said, "I didn't. But I did. Because you asked me to step away. And this is what that looks like." Aunt Lucille reached for the keyboard and ended the call without saying a word. And just like that, the trial was over. No verdict, no apology, just a screen gone dark. I closed my laptop. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear the silence around me. But for the first time in years, maybe ever, I didn't feel like I'd done something wrong. I felt free. Not triumphant. Not spiteful. Just free. It started with a thick envelope from the bank. No email, no phone call, just paper. The kind of envelope that doesn't bend. The kind that feels like bad news before you even open it. Inside was an investigation summary. Apparently, someone had submitted an application for a business loan, $75,000, under the name New Dawn Recovery Services, LLC. The applicant? Rachel Morgan. My name, my social security number, even the tax ID from the Morgan Reserve Fund account. But here's the thing, there was no business. No LLC on file, no active EIN, no license. Just a beautifully forged application with a signature that looked like mine, but wasn't. The co-signers listed? Tom and Sandra Morgan, my parents. I sat on the floor, the papers spread around me like debris after an explosion. I called the bank, asked to speak to fraud prevention. They pulled up the documents and confirmed. "Ma'am, it looks like someone attempted to apply for a commercial loan under your identity. If the fund hadn't been closed when it was, this likely would have been approved." If the fund hadn't been closed. I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't a desperate mistake. This was a setup. A quiet attempt to make me financially responsible without telling me. Step 1. Push me out of the family emotionally. Step 2. Keep my name on the fund. Step 3. Use it for a massive loan, with my signature forged and ready. Let the money get approved. Let it run out. Let the bank chase the name on the paperwork. Me. I sat there for hours, reading, rereading, staring at the fake company name they invented to make it sound legitimate. New Dawn Recovery Services. I should have known. Josh had mentioned once, in passing, that he wanted to start something meaningful, something wellness-focused, something that could help others heal. Apparently, what he meant was, steal $75,000 under my name and see what happens. That night, I filed a report with the bank, then one with the police, then another with the IRS. I attached everything, screenshots, statements, old messages. Even a voice note where Josh once asked if I'd ever consider co-signing something for him. I wrote an affidavit, signed it with the only thing I had left, the truth. Then came the call. A different number, unknown. I answered anyway. It was Josh. He was crying. "I just wanted to say, I get it now," he said. "I'm sorry." He didn't mention the loan, didn't mention the forgery. Just kept talking about how hard things had been, how we were still family. I asked one question. "Did you know about the business application?" There was a long pause. Then the line went dead. I blocked the number. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. Not in anger, not in fear, but in clarity. They hadn't just used me. They hadn't just taken my money. They tried to make me the fall girl for a scam they orchestrated in my name. And still, somehow, they expected forgiveness. Expected me to come back. They always did. But not this time. The receptionist knocked gently on my office door. "There's a woman here," she said. "Says she's your mother. She's not leaving." I froze, not out of fear, but exhaustion. I already knew why she was here. I stepped out into the lobby, and there she was. Sandra Morgan, my mother. Her hair was messy. Her hands clutched an oversized envelope, fingers trembling just enough to be noticed. Her lips were pinched in a line between apology and accusation. "I didn't know where else to go," she said. I didn't respond. She stepped forward. "Your dad's sleeping on the couch. Josh hasn't left his room in days. The power bill's overdue. The landlord says he's changing the locks next week." I still didn't speak. So she played the last card. "I raised you," she said. "I gave you life, and this is how you repay us?" I laughed. Not loud, not bitter. Just empty, like a balloon losing air. "You gave me life," I said. "And then you spent 30 years trying to convince me I owed you for it." She flinched. I stepped closer. "I never asked to be the safety net. I didn't sign up to be the family's financial spine, to hold everything upright while no one else even tried. Her voice wavered. We were struggling. And I wasn't, I said. You never asked how I was, never wondered how I managed all of it. You just called it being the responsible one and washed your hands of the rest. She held out the envelope. These are the bills. Can you at least— No. One word, firm, final. I didn't come to you at 27 and say, please let me carry the dysfunction. Let me save Josh over and over while you nod and enable him. Let me miss birthdays, break relationships, lose sleep just so you never have to look in the mirror. Her mouth opened, then closed. I softened my voice, not out of mercy, but out of clarity. You want help? Call a credit counselor, a social worker, a lawyer. Call anyone except me. Her eyes shimmered, but she didn't cry. I turned around. Walked back into my office. Didn't look to see if she followed. She didn't. That night, I got an email. From the bank. It wasn't about the loan. It was a confirmation. The last of the shared authorizations had been removed. The Morgan Reserve Fund, now closed, was no longer linked to anything with my name. It was over. Not just the fund. The illusion. The arrangement, the guilt economy, the myth of helping because we're family. They thought they'd been cut off. But really, for the first time in my life, I'd simply said, enough. And unlike every time before, I didn't feel like a bad daughter. I felt like a whole person. I moved to Seattle 2 months later. New job, better pay, apartment with real windows that let in actual sunlight, a fridge that wasn't stocked with budget groceries, and a bank account that, for the first time in years, only had my name on it. I didn't leave a forwarding address, didn't send an announcement, no one asked. For a while it was unsettling, the silence, the absence of need, the total lack of, hey, quick question texts or late-night guilt-laced voicemails. But slowly I realized this is what peace feels like, not loud, not triumphant, just still. My credit score stayed stable, my inbox stayed clean. There were no mystery accounts, no last-minute charges. The alerts I set up after the forgery never triggered. I had my life back. Then came the message. It was from Uncle Ray, Dad's estranged brother, the one everyone said was unstable, dramatic, dangerous. He found me on LinkedIn. Good for you, he wrote. Heard about the fund, the loan. I know what that family does. You're not the first, just the first who shut the faucet off. I didn't reply, but I didn't block him either. Because I finally understood. This wasn't just about me. This was generational. A long line of people, often the most capable, the most reliable, being drained dry for the comfort of those who refused to grow. It was never personal. It was just convenient, until you said no. A few weeks later, I was walking home from a late client dinner. The street was calm, the kind of warm summer night that makes the city feel forgiving. I passed a bakery with soft lighting and empty chairs, and sitting at one of the tables was Aunt Lucille. Scarf, pearls, posture like a woman in control of the narrative. She looked up, surprised, smiled like nothing had ever happened. You look well, she said. I am. She hesitated, then, without irony, asked, would you ever consider setting something up again, for emergencies? I laughed. Not to mock her, just because it was so wildly predictable. I did, I said. I call it my future. Then I walked away. She didn't follow. She never would. Back at home, I lit a candle, made tea, let the quiet wrap around me like a weighted blanket. The messages still came from time to time. A birthday email from Josh, a Christmas photo from Mom, always framed with nostalgia, followed by a soft nudge. Just wondering if you could help with— I never answered. Because I no longer owed anyone access to my peace. I'd given enough, saved enough, sacrificed enough, and for the first time, I wasn't waiting to be asked again. I had created something real, not a fund, not a backup plan, but a boundary with a backbone. They could rewrite the story all they wanted, say I was bitter, cold, ungrateful, that I chose money over blood. But I knew the truth. I didn't leave because I stopped loving them. I left because I finally started loving myself. And that? That was the fund worth protecting. Sometimes choosing peace looks like walking away from the people you thought you'd never live without. And sometimes the hardest thing isn't being cut off. It's realizing you were never truly held. If you've ever been the one who kept things together, quietly, consistently, without applause, this story is for you. Because freedom doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it shows up in the quiet, in the stillness, in the space where your phone doesn't buzz at 3 a.m. You don't owe anyone your exhaustion, and you don't have to bleed to prove your loyalty. You're allowed to build something that belongs only to you. At Sweet Revenge, Happy Ending, we share stories that reclaim power, rewrite endings, and remind you you're not alone, not bitter, not broken, just done. If this story moved you, share it. If it reflected something in your own life, save it. And if you're still caring too much for people who never say thank you, maybe today's the day you set it down.